Welcome to the AME Food Testing Show. Today's topic, learning to comply with BRC Standards with Russell Parry. Russell's firm, Online Food Safety Training. He is the director of the Advanced Food Safety Limited. He has set up the Advanced Food Safety Limited since 1995. The company specializes in BRC Standard, ISO 22,000 consultancy. He provides a wide range of food safety training courses within the company and provides in-house via book-based distance learning and online e-learning these services. Russell and his company has won many national and regional awards over the years, including Best Training Company twice, Best Trainer, Entrepreneur of the Year, and various export awards. He's been interviewed on the AME Food Testing Show very successfully in the past, and he has received very much of an accolade for his authorship of the leading brand of AllSafe distance learning courses, which cover food safety, levels 1 through 3, HACCP, internal auditing, allergens, 5 ways, and health safety. Last year, all courses were converted to an e-learning format with the addition of e-videos. Now, welcome with me as the principal and founder of an e-learning organization, Russell Parry. Russell?
Hello, Andy. Great to talk to you again.
Well, do you have any updates for us on your introduction?
No, I think you covered, as always, you've covered pretty much everything we do there. We're very, very busy, as always, with training, particularly HACCP training and internal audit training, and even more BRC clients going for BRC certification. So we've got off to a great start for this year. We're really pleased.
Well, we're very excited to have you on the show. The topic of international food safety certifications is one that is very perplexing for many food production companies. Can you introduce us to the topic of what are international food safety certifications?
Okay, there are many international food safety certifications that company can opt to go for. In the USA, of course, and we have the AIB, International Standard, and we have many UK companies that go for that certification over here. There's the SQF standard, ISO 22,000, a very specific HACCP certification standard. There's the more recent FRSPH 22,000 certification. There's IFS certification, which is the French-German standard, which is very similar to the BRC standard that I'm going to talk to you about today. So there's a big choice out there for companies that need food safety certification. I think, from my point of view, the BRC standard stands out perhaps more than any of the others, that it covers the entire food chain. Now, we're here today to talk to your listeners about the BRC standard for food safety, but there are other ones, maybe at some time in the future I'll come back and talk to you about, but there's the BRC packaging standard, the BRC storage and distribution, and the BRC consumer goods. So the BRC food fits into all of those, so it encompasses such a wide area of the food chain. And I think that's what a lot of people like, especially retailers, about this standard.
Russell, excellent summary of the various international food safety certifications. Can you review what is the British Retail Consortium?
Well, the British Retail Consortium, or the BRC as we tend to call it, that's an organisation. They're based in London, here in the UK. It's a trade association. It covers the whole of the retail industry. Does many great things for the food and the retail industry. But they have a technical committee as part of this organisation. And this technical committee puts together the BRC Standards. And the committee includes representatives from all of the certification bodies. They're the organisations that go out to audit companies, the retailers themselves, and representatives of the technical side of our food retailers. And it also includes representatives from industry associations as well. So when these standards are put together, they're put together by the retailers, by the industry association representatives, and the certification bodies as well. So there's a good representation from right across the whole food spectrum there, really.
Very good. Now, as we think of the BRC, what is the terminology BRC Global Standards to be interpreted by food production companies? Okay,
well, if I explain what the BRC standards are and how they came about, that should give the listeners a good idea of what we're talking about here. The BRC standard are not new at all. The first BRC standard came out in 1998. This was the food standard. Again, as I've just mentioned, it was developed by this technical committee from the BRC. So on there, we have representatives from the retailers, certification bodies, industry trade associations. And this standard was first put together because in the 1980s and the early 1990s, if you were like me, a technical manager in high-risk food businesses, and you were supplying the major retailers, you were audited many, many times. I was probably audited 2 or 3 times a month by various customers. And they were all, of course, looking for similar things, but they all wanted it reporting in a different way or implementing in slightly different ways. And it got very, very out of hand, really. And the industry recognized this. So the BRC got all these representatives together for the first time, and they developed this standard whereby a food safety standard was developed that everybody was happy with. And the idea was if you gained certification to the BRC standard, you met the minimum standards for all the food retailers. And that was the concept behind it all. And so that happened way back in 1998. At the time, you had a choice of just 4 certification bodies to choose from, 4 companies you would go to for your audit. Now, I'm pleased to say that's changed quite dramatically now, and there are around about 100 certification bodies worldwide just for the food standards. So there's a great choice there for people to take now. And on the success, really, of that food standard, as the years went by, more standards were developed. So next we had the BRC standard for packaging and packaging materials. So that covers all the flexible film, glass production that goes into the food industry, etc., foil trays, for example. Then there was the BRC storage and distribution standard that came out, and that was all about the controls necessary for hauliers, distributors, storage companies taking products from the manufacturers to the supermarket depots. And there's even a consumer goods BRC standard, which is for non-food products. And some breaking news, really, for all your listeners there, Andy. There is a new BRC standard out next month, specific for food agents and brokers. So they may be importing or exporting food, and there's a standard coming out next month specifically for them. So, as I said, unlike other standards, the BRC standard, it links to the packaging, the transport, and things like that. And there was a very interesting change, Andy, last year here in the UK. One of our largest retailers called ASDA. They're part of the Walmart group, which you'll be very familiar with over there in the States. They announced to all their own label suppliers that they must go for their BRC audit. They must have unannounced audits. Typically, you have a choice. You can book your audit so you know when the auditor is going to arrive. But ASDA now require all their own label suppliers to have unannounced. So you just have a 3-month window, and the auditor can arrive literally at any time during that 3-month period. And that started the 1st of October last year. So that was quite a big change in the way the BRC is being used now. And interestingly, ASDA came up with some more requirements, and they've said that the packaging companies that you use to make the ASDA product must come from a BRC packaging firm, and the companies that you use to transport all those food products to the ASDA depots, again, must be BRC storage and distribution certificated. So that was a real big change for us over here.
Russell, your information is both timely and pointed for anyone involved in shipment of food within the BRC standard. What is, and you've highlighted this very well with both announced and unannounced audits, what is the audit process under the BRC food standards?
Okay, the audit process really, when a company is ready to go for certification, and they can work on all the requirements. I'll perhaps talk through the requirements shortly, but when they're ready, they think they have all the systems in place, they simply just contact their certification body, the organization that they want to conduct the audit. And as I said, there's about 100 you can choose from now, and you can select your auditing company from the BRC directory. You can search that by country, by category as well. So you simply choose your auditing company. You opt whether you want to go for an announced audit or an unannounced audit. The minimum duration of an audit, even for a very, very small company, is a day and a half. So that's the absolute minimum duration that the audit will last for. The audit duration, just for your information, that's decided by the size of the company, the number of employees, number of HACCP systems that are in operation, and that calculates the number of hours that an auditor needs to spend on site. So all that is done, and then on the day of your audit, there's the usual opening meeting between the auditor and senior management. That goes through the audit plan, how the audit is going to be conducted during the time on site. They agree the scope of the audit, exactly what is the auditor going to see, what is going to be on the certificate that's going to be issued. They go through the types of non-conformities that may be awarded, and they're categorized minor, major, and critical. And that's how the grading system eventually works. And then the audit process starts. And the first thing that the auditor will more than likely look at, in our experience, is the HACCP system, because obviously that's the heart of the food safety system. It gives the whole process, the flow diagram, all the critical control points to the process. So the auditor, first of all, assesses the HACCP system. And then following that, usually there's the first of the factory inspections. So the auditor will go down onto the factory floor. They need to spend about 40-50% of their total time on the factory floor. So a lot of time is now spent where the action is, seeing all the products being produced. Following the factory tour, they go back up to the office, and then they just start going through the rest of the clauses. There are 7 sections in total, so they would have already seen section 2, which is HACCP. So they go back to section 1, which is all about management commitment, and then they work themselves through section 3 through to 7, just establishing that the company meets the standard and they have the evidence to back all that up, and the records, of course. The auditor usually goes back into the factory several more times. They like to see a line startup, a product changeover. They like to see, if possible, inside equipment. So they may open up equipment just to check key inspection points. So that's how the kind of audit will take place. Then, right at the end of the audit period, the auditor has their quiet time, and they just collate all their notes, make sure they haven't missed anything off, make sure they have all their evidence for the audit, and then they have a closing meeting. And it's at that meeting with senior management from the company, they discuss any non-conformities that might be raised, a provisional grade is given, and then that's the end of the audit process. The certification body's technical committee give the final grade, and if you have any non-conformities, you have 28 days to action them. And then you submit the evidence of your actions, and they could be photos, updated procedures, training records, etc. So you submit your evidence against each non-conformance, and it's just, you sit tight then until hopefully you're notified of your grade. And the grading is A, B, or C. A is the best grade you can achieve, that's less than 10 minor non-conformities. A grade A and B will give you a annual inspection audit, but if you get a grade C, you have to go through the whole lot again in 6 months' time. So it's worth making sure all your systems are in place so you perform well on the audit day. So that's typically how the audit process works.
Russell, that's a very extensive discussion on the process of having an auditor come into a food safety plant. I'm going to interject 2 questions. One, can a food plant management team review the qualifications of the auditor prior to the initiation of the audit? Question 1. And then question 2, most plants that I've audited do not have a dedicated food safety officer to escort these auditors. Would it be your suggestion to have a designated, trained food safety officer to prepare for these audits over?
Absolutely, Andy. If I can take the qualifications first, yes, you certainly can challenge the qualifications and the experience of the auditor that's coming in to inspect you. I've got to say that's, in my experience, not always done. You take it as read that the auditor is suitably qualified, but of course you can do that, and in some cases you should do that. Maybe if I just explain, we have the food manufacturer, of course, is audited by the certification body. Okay, the certification bodies also have their own very stringent rules that they have to comply with, and they are audited by, in the UK, an organisation called UCAS, the United Kingdom Accreditation Service. And UCAS makes sure all the auditing companies only send in suitably qualified auditors with the right experience of that sector, so they obviously know what they're looking for. And of course, you can't hide anything. They have experience of that industry. And again, something that's just happening this year under the BRC standard is the auditors have to undertake examinations in the relevant sectors that they audit. So if you are a BRC auditor and you're approved to audit meat companies, then starting this year, those auditors will have to sit meat exams, if you like, to make sure that they understand the processes that they are going to be seeing. And similarly, if you're signed off in the fish industry or the canning industry, each sector you're signed off with, you'll have to sit certain exams to maintain your or justify your skills level. And of course, they have to be HACCP trained as well. So a minimum level 3. So BRC auditors have to, because of their rules and regulations, have suitably trained and qualified auditors that go in to do the inspections. Now, your second question, Andy, was, yeah, I find that quite interesting. Some of the plants you've inspected don't have a designated person. Under the BRC standard, you do have to have a BRC representative. Okay, that is the person, if you like, that manages the BRC system on that site. Usually, it's the technical manager or the quality manager, and they have the responsibility for making sure that system is maintained and improved. And something else that you must have as well is a deputy for that person. There's a section in the BRC standard for cover for absence, they call it, under the standard. So key personnel in the organisation must have a person to cover them if they're on holiday, if they're ill. Now, if you can imagine, Andy, this big change to unannounced audits that ASDA have made their suppliers do, imagine if you're having an audit and your BRC representative is not there, they're away or they're ill or something. There's got to be somebody else on site that knows the system. And that's very, very important to make sure happens. And it's, of course, common sense, really. You know, you can't leave it to one person to understand everything that's going on the technical side. You've got to spread that responsibility out. So if you have clients out there, or if you're listening to this and you have a factory, you must have a BRC representative, and they must have a deputy for when they are absent from the business.
Russell, again, you've given us both, in a sense, the offensive or the licensure and the defensive strategies in perfect clarity.
Great.
May I now ask you, in our second to last inquiry, what are the advantages of a BRC certification to a food producer?
There are great advantages, really, to the BRC. Very simply, if you don't have the BRC certification, you are at a great disadvantage, because if you want to supply the major food retailers, especially in own label product, then without the BRC standard, you just can't do it. It's as simple as that. Even food manufacturers insist that their ingredient suppliers are BRC certificated. So you can see it's going right down the chain. So it's really essential. It's really seen now as a minimum standard. But other key things for the advantages are it's internationally recognized. Of course, it's called the British Retail Consortium, but there are many companies certificated in the USA, in Australia, in South America, that import their products to manufacturers here in the UK, to retailers here in the UK. So it's internationally recognized. It is a standard that doesn't just cover food safety, it builds in quality as well as food safety. It brings in legality of food products as well. So it's an all-encompassing standard covering safety, legality, and quality. It gives companies great credibility, really, and great confidence. Confidence for the company. Once you get certification, it's a great feeling because you know an expert has come in, they've assessed your systems, and when you get an A grade, you know that your systems are very, very robust. So that's great confidence for the food manufacturer, and of course it's great confidence for your customers, knowing that their suppliers are accredited to such a high standard. So great for confidence, great for credibility, good for a company's due diligence. Should anything go to court, you're going to know you've got the policies, the procedures, the records to help back up your case. It encourages best practice. That's built in to the standard as well. And as we said before, it links into all the other BRC standards. So really great advantages to the BRC standard.
Russell, your response, again, in perfect clarity, spurred a question in my mind. May a company request the BRC audit from one of their suppliers?
Right. How do you mean there, Andy? To make them get certification or request their audit report?
Excellent bifurcation. I would proffer that it would be the secondary, to look at the report as an additional food safety step.
Yes.
To assure them beyond the simple receiving of the certificate. Over.
Sure. Well, actually, some of my clients here in the UK, they do ask their suppliers not just for proof of their audits, in other words, the certificate that is issued, but they do ask for a copy of their audit report. And this is a very, very comprehensive report, as you can imagine, really. So you can request it. And, you know, if a company's got nothing to hide, generally they do issue their reports to their customers. So, and as I said, we have many clients that do request not just the certificate, but their report as well. And I think that's a good thing. You can see all the detail of what's going in there. I've got to say the BRC and the certification bodies would never release any reports because of confidentiality. So that is between the customer and the supplier, you know. But always ask for it, I would say. The more information you can get on your suppliers, the better, of course.
Well, Russell, that statement that you just made is a perfect example of the relevancy of the term transparency in modern business transactions.
Yes, absolutely.
And
right. Yeah.
I endorse that 100%, as you know. I would now like to allow you, Russell, to explain to our listening audience of almost now 80,000 food production, food quality, food safety, and food security managers the capabilities of your firm for your clients worldwide.
Yes. Thank you very much for the opportunity, Andy. Well, if anybody is going for the BRC standard, whatever help they may need, we can certainly offer assistance. If it's just general questions, then, you know, I'll probably get snowballed by emails now. But, you know, we want companies to succeed. We want the food industry to improve in its standards all the time. So any questions, you know, people can get in touch with us. That's not a problem at all. We specialise, as you know, in all of the BRC standards. In my company, Advanced Food Safety, I personally look after all our BRC consultancy projects and oversee all of them. We have been working with clients since the BRC standard first came out. So 1998, We got our first clients through, and I'm pleased to say we are still working with most of the clients that we got through in those very, very early days, which is excellent, really. All our clients are A grade as well, as good as you can possibly get. So if anybody needs any assistance of any description, we do consultancy via Skype, even for clients overseas. We're always here to assist. All the training, and there's a lot of training that's required for the BRC standard, as you can imagine. Different levels of food safety training, HACCP training, internal audit training, allergen training, very popular at the moment. And we can provide all of that certificated training in-house, in a book format, as in distance learning, by e-learning, of course, now, as you mentioned in the introduction there. So even for, and we export a lot of our courses over to the USA as well. And so wherever you are, we can offer our training courses. We carry out gap analysis, pre-audit inspections as well. And as I mentioned, Skype consultancy as well. So people just have to contact us, what their query are, what their concerns are, and they can do that on info@food-safety.co.uk. That's our email address. Our Skype name is Advanced Food Safety Ltd. And our website is www.food-safety.co.uk. And for training, it's www.allsafe, that's allsafe.org.uk, allsafe.org.uk. And as I said, if anybody needs any type of assistance at all, just please contact us and we'll be more than happy to assist.
Russell, as always, thank you so much for the time you've graciously contributed, and I wish you the utmost success as the food industry adjusts to these revolutionary concepts of international standards, of unannounced audits, which are shocking, as well as the whole concept of transparency. Excellent. I'd like to wish you a good day.
Thank you very much, Andy. And a pleasure to talk to you again. All the very best to you and your listeners for the coming year.
Thank you, sir. Have a great day.
Take care.